History 425. Week 7, Part 1. We're continuing on slide 14. Hua Guofeng was a provincial leader in 1969 and 70 from Mao's home province of Hunan. He was working in Changsha, the city that was the port of call for the sailors in the Sand Pebbles, where the bar was with Mr. Shu, where the auction of Frenchie's Sweetheart took place. Changsha, the capital of Hunan province, was the place that Mao went to when he fled his father and family, went to Changsha, became a school teacher, and was elected there as a Communist Party member, delegate rather, to go to the first party congress. He was representing Hunan province. So Changsha, on the Yangtze River, China's great east-west waterway, Mao's home province was where Hua Guofeng was spotted by Mao during one of his travels. He had identified, not publicly, but in his own mind, Wang Hongwen, the young man you saw in the previous slide, who is standing at the left in the army uniform, the man who was the Shanghai radical former security manager in a factory, became a radical leader during the first stages of the Cultural Revolution, helped to take over the city from the establishment, and was identified by Mao then, brought to Beijing, with the idea that perhaps this young man could be my successor. However, Wang Hongwen proved to be, if not a dilettante or a lazy boy, proved to be not capable of national leadership in Mao's eyes. Maybe not enough fire in the belly or something. Maybe he didn't work enough. Maybe he played too many video games. I don't know. Didn't read enough books. Didn't do all of his readings. Hard to say. Maybe Mao quizzed him on Mao thought and found him wanting. There is no record that I'm aware of. But Mao found hope in Hua Guofeng. Started him off in his trial run as Minister of Public Security. He became Minister of Public Security after the mysterious death of the minister at the time, Li Jun, in the basement, where he either shot himself or hung himself or did something like that in the privacy of the basement. You can imagine, I don't know, up amongst the dungeons. Poor Li Jun. Anyway, Mao quickly brought Hua Guofeng up the ranks and decided that if you're in charge, I'm at ease. The very famous saying that I've posted at the bottom of that painting. This painting became, was everywhere in China for a long time and made it all over Chinese bookstores overseas. Jiang Qing, Mao's wife, later claimed that that's not everything that Mao said. He really said, 你办事我放心，有问题问找张青，有问题找张青. In other words, with you in charge, I'm at ease. If you have questions, go to Jiang Qing. That was her idea, anyway, of what the chairman said. But a lot of other people didn't think that way. Let's go on to slide 15. They immediately ousted her. The most powerful people in the party ousted her and 3 of the radicals who were her allies, who became known as the Gang of Four. There's some truth, but it's not fully accurate to say that the Cultural Revolution was the fault of the Gang of Four. people used to say Gang of Four and hold up 5 fingers back in the day during this time period, and by that they were sort of winking and saying, you know, there was really a 5th member of the Gang of Four, and we don't want to say who that was, but they would imply that it was Mao Zedong. If there was a 5th member of a so-called Gang of Four, it was probably Kang Sheng, who you may remember returned from Moscow to China in 1937 with Wang Ming, both of them sent back by Stalin. Stalin sent Wang Ming back to take charge of the Communist Party. He sent Kang Sheng back to take charge of Chinese Communist intelligence. Kang Sheng did that. He immediately became an ally of Mao and betrayed Wang Ming. Kang Sheng became, he was blamed for the excesses of the 1943 Salvation Campaign, which we discussed in an earlier lecture. Kang Sheng was the Secret Service chief until 1946, and then was taken away by Mao, but protected. Similarly, similar to the way that Mao protected Deng Xiaoping in his internal exile during the Cultural Revolution, both of his internal exiles. First between 1966 and 1973, when he was brought back to power, and then in 1975, Mao sent him south to be under the protection of the head of the Guangzhou military region. So Deng Xiaoping was never tortured to death or left to die in a cell or anything like that, like Liu Shaoqi. Kang Sheng was a close associate of Jiang Qing, so if there was a Gang of 5, he would be included. But the thing about the Gang of 4 was that if we consider them to be the center of the Cultural Revolution group, which is, one can argue that they were, their power base was in the propaganda department of the party and in the propaganda ministry of the government. They did not have a power base in the other important and most prominent bodies of the party and the government, namely the military, the organization department, and the security services. All of those boys and girls were upset with Jiang Qing for her conduct during the Cultural Revolution. She was Mao's axeman. I guess I'm saying that because of the illustration we see here in the slide. She was Mao's hatchet woman on the left. She went after a lot of people in a very vicious way. She was known for her difficult and spiteful personality, but more than that, she took a lot of revenge against a lot of people in a very violent way during the Cultural Revolution and had numerous enemies. And when Mao died, there was no more chairman to have her back. That is, to protect her and use her to pursue leftist policies when necessary. There was the number of people who wanted the pursuance of leftist policies had grown fewer and fewer over the years as those policies proved themselves to be disastrous. So once Mao died, it was a matter of, I think, 3.5 weeks, and Jiang Qing was under arrest, along with these other 3 gentlemen. Let's go on to the next slide. And they were put on trial. Here on slide 16, Jiang Qing's most famous statement during the trial, which was broadcast on national television, incredibly, was, "I was Chairman Mao's dog. 我是毛主席的狗," she said. "Whenever he told me to bite somebody, I bit." it's interesting that the regime decided to actually broadcast her remarks because she did a very good job of showing what a jerk she was, a very good job of showing why society would be much better off without her. Perhaps her interrogators and the prosecutors realized that she would do this, that she could not be suppressed, so why bother? It was an interesting, in the end, it was an interesting, very frank performance on the part of Jiang Qing, and it made clear that the country was indeed better off without her. Her lack of support in the government and the party was echoed throughout society. The parade you saw in the previous slide was duplicated throughout the nation when these people were arrested, and Jiang Qing herself was given a suspended death sentence, but she killed herself in her cell. I think it was 3 years later, maybe a little bit longer. I'm afraid I've forgotten exactly when she did herself in, poor Jiang Qing. The other members of the Gang of Four were mostly silent during the trial. Zhang Chunqiao on the left there only died a couple years ago. I think he was released and was able to live a life more or less in peace. But it was an ill fate that they did not foresee, as for sure, of the Gang of Four, so-called. So once they were gone, the way was open for change. It was possible to consider altering policies, but it had to be done in a very deliberate and slow and careful manner for the sake of societal stability, because, of course, China had been taken through numerous difficult twists and turns, quite a roller coaster ride if you think back about the things that had happened in the preceding 15 years. We're talking about 1976, going all the way back then to 1960, 1961. Really, if you go back 20 years, the difficulties that society had been through and the policy changes it had undergone had been tremendous. And now the new leadership wanted to do something different. However, there was a debate. There was a debate between people who wanted to take China back to the time of the Soviet 5-year plans and deliberate and slow development, sticking to socialist norms, and people who wanted to pursue a more aggressive modernization course. And we'll talk about that in part 2 of this lecture.